table is called, I'm gonna go over here. I will create this one. It's called, the table name? Customers, right? So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna type this. Customer ID, full name, address, city, state, zip codes, right? So for me, when I build the database tables, I just have over here and I say customer name. You may or may not want to leave space between the field names, it's up to you. So you can leave customer space name, or you can say customer name in one word. And then, actually, first of all, I had the customer ID first, right? I had the customer ID first, ID, and then customer name, and customer address, customer city, customer state, customer zip, I think customer phone. I'm trying to go from memory here, but the idea and the intent is for you to type those field names exactly as they appear in the table design. So customer ID, customer full name I call it, so I'm gonna go over here and type the word full name. Customer address, city, state, zip, phone. Is that right? With or without space and down left to you. Is that right? I will put one more field in here. I'll put customer picture because I want to show you something else. Customer picture, right? So now I have defined the field names. The next step is for me to define the data types. What kind of data will be stored in that field? Is that right? So customer ID, I want it to be over here. I want this customer ID, and you can specify over here the parameters. I want customer ID to be an auto number. An auto number means it will be a number that will be automatically incremented by Microsoft Access. So the first customer will be 1, the next customer 2, 3, 4, and Microsoft Access will keep track of this number so it can next time assign the next sequence to the next customer. Fair enough? So customer full name. So customer full name, this is now text, right? So text, that means it will be alphanumeric data. It will be Spiros Villaris the third, something like that, right? Or whatever it's gonna be. So I will have the customer full name. So as you select the data type from the drop-down list box, then for every data type, and short text means text that it is up to 256 characters long. If you wanted more text, like a memo or to leave a notes, things like this, you can have long text. Long text, we have multiple lines of text, right? So this will be, now as you select the text, short text, then the next question over here, you're gonna go down to the properties. Notice over here it says properties at the very bottom, properties. So this is the metadata now. So on the properties, as you can see, it says field size. So now it says 255. It goes from 0 to 255, right? It means 256 characters, right? So in there, you will specify how long that field size to be. And the idea is to be economical. You don't want to waste space by assigning 255s for a name, right? So I will make that into 30 characters. To assign the right field size, you can either go to US Census and find out the maximum, the minimums, or you can look at your actual data and pick up the longest name, and that's what it's gonna be. And also the business rules. Do you allow to have truncation of the name? And if that truncation is allowed, then you can make it smaller to 20, right? Is that right? Do you see that format? Now, I'm not gonna change anything else in here, but I want to change one more thing in here. Notice over here, these are all properties. All properties are parameters that they affect that particular field, the full name. So if I say over here, this field size is 30, and over here it says require field no, I will make that to yes, meaning that you cannot add a record unless you have a customer name in there. You cannot have a customer with no name, right? If it's no, that means that field is optional. So it, as a result, can be left blank, empty, right? I need to have at least a customer name. Maybe I can leave the phone number empty. A customer may not have a phone number, right? But I need to have at least a name. So I will specify the name, okay? So I will go to the next one, customer address. I'll do the same thing. I will put 30 for the customer address, Customer city, I'll make that 20 characters long. Customer state, I will make that into just 2 characters long. To say CA for California and so on and so forth. Is that right? Here is now some other parameters and properties in here. You're having, in addition to having, you're gonna see mask in a minute, right? But over here says default value. Notice that it has this default value. Default value means I want to, if I create a new record, automatically to add some data, some values in there. So I say, most of my customers are in California, so I will default CA for California in there. You see that? The validation rule is if you would like to have validations or if you want restrictions to the data that somebody can type in there, right? So for example, I can put validation rule the following. CA or AZ or AK, meaning that only California or Arizona or Alaska will be the only permitted values in there. If somebody says New York, we don't do business in New York, right? So over here, then you're gonna have an error message to say, we apologize, but we do not do business in your state yet. But we do not do business in your state. Stay with me, please. Something like that. Is that right? You see that? And now we'll continue over here with the zip code. The zip code will be how long? How many characters?
5.
I will put 9. 5 is correct, but I will put 9 because sometimes you have a mail stop, right? For me, like if somebody sends me a mail in here, we'd like to define my mailbox, right? Unless you have a mail stop. So I will make it into 9. And look at what I'm gonna do over here. Then I will put a mask. A mask are special characters to separate the text in that cell. And notice, it says table must be saved. Yes, so I click yes. Remember, you save as you go, right? So table is called customers, that's what we call it, customers. There's no primary, you can define primary key, yes. I say yes, the primary key. I will say no for now, but I can define a primary key in a minute, right? So this is a phone, it's a zip code, so zip code, this is the mask, and I click finish. Access puts those characters in here, 0s and 9s. 0 means mandatory. And notice over there it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, means 5 mandatory numbers. And then there's 4 9s after that. That means 4 optional. So you might not need to have 5, but you may have another 4. Right, you see that? So, and the 4th number, I will make that into 10. And I will put also a mask for a 4th number. Save it, you know, it's again, it reminds me, right? Yes, save it, and I will make it a 4th number, I click finish. And let me make a primary key. A primary key, select the row, the field for the primary key, and then you click over here, that button that says primary key, and we'll put a little icon next to it to say primary key. If the primary key is made of 2 or more fields, you can select them and you say all together they make a primary key. This is a primary key that consists, that is not unique by just one field, but the combination of 2 or more fields makes a unique key. Is that right? So if you have the keys that they are not one next to the other, so you can hold down the control key and I say I want the customer ID and hold down the control key and the customer phone, and then you can click primary key and put keys on this both of them, right? In our case, I only need primary key for this, so I just select primary key for customer ID. Is that clear? But you have a choice to select more than one keys if you would like. Control and then click, click, click all those keys. That will make up a composite key. Why? Because notice over here on this table, order items. What's the primary key? Made of 2 different, right? 2 different keys. But together they make a unique combination. Right? So in that case, select them both. Yes? And I will show you one more thing on the customer picture. Customer picture, here is the different types of data that you can put. I discussed already for you short text, long text, a number, a date and time, a currency, an auto number that we just did, and yes or no fields, an OLE, a hyperlink and attachment, a calculated field that very likely you would like to use in assignment 1. But in here, I will make that into object linking and embedding. What that means, that there is in there, I will place in that field, I will place a file created by another program that is compatible with Microsoft Access. You can put a video, you can put an Excel file, you can put a Word document, you can put, I will put a picture down in a minute for you to see, right? So far so good? So this is, and if you want, you can click save to save your work. Again, as you go, Access will remind you to save. Now for every object, remember the objects are in here. Now notice that before it was blank, this panel in here, I had no objects. And now I have one object, it's called tables, and it's customer, right? So you can be able to see the different objects. And you can group them based on type, like tables, queries, forms, reports, and so on and so forth. Yep. So I have in here the customer's table. For every object, whether it will be a form, a table, a query, you have multiple views, multiple ways for you to see that object. In here, I'm in design view. Remember I started with design view. If I click on this button, here's my list. I go to the data view. So I see the data, and then I go to design. Data, design. See that? If I look at the data, I can display the data, or I can change the data too. So for here, for example, I will put customer full name, Spiros Velianitis. Address, 6000 J Street. City, Sacramento. Notice CA has been already defaulted because I asked you to default it, right? So what if I don't put CA there and I put another state? Illinois. What's the error message? Right? We apologize, we do not do business in your state yet. Is that right? Remember that goes, I said in the rules that I only allowed to have California or Arizona or Alaska. Is that what I put, right? Is that correct? So if I put Arizona, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because I say it will be one or the other three states, right? So I put here California, customer zip code, notice 95, notice it puts a mask in there, remember 95, what's it here, 819, right? What if I don't have a 9 and I have only 4 characters? Remember the mask said 5 zeros, right? If I do that, it's gonna say the mask is not correct. Or I can put another error, more user-friendly error message, right? So I have to put at least, and I can have 0 or more characters in here, it doesn't matter, right? And then my phone number, the same thing, 916-278-5940 for my office, right? If I do not have all the characters, it's gonna give me an error message, right? That's a validation. And then the customer picture in here. I'm not gonna put the picture now, I will show you the picture in a minute. So here's my first record, right? So design, data. Right? Go ahead, ask a question. Yeah, so you can go back to design data, right? As you go, and as you type the data will be automatically saved. There's no need for you to click save. You only save when you change the design of the structure of the database. It's called the schema, right? The data is automatically saved, automatically deleted, right? Automatically changed. So far so good. I will show you later how to make forms. I will make a quick form right now to show you the idea of the picture. So I'm gonna go over here and I will say create. Remember, if I wanna create another type of an object, I click the create menu. And over here, I will say create a form. And because I have the customer's table selected, I can say create a form, automatically will build a form for me from that table. Right, to make it easy. I can go to design and make my own, but over here, I have the design, and here it is Now in a form, notice that I can see my data in here. It says customer 1, Spiros, J Street, right? I don't have a picture in here. I'll show you what happens when you add the picture in there. I will click over here and I say insert an object. Remember, this is an object I'm putting in there, right? In here, I can type a state, right? Arizona. And press enter, right? If I make a mistake, Washington, right? I want to get the error message, so I'll move over here, California, right? But this is an object, so I can insert an object. You have to do that for your, also for your assignment. You have to create a form that has a picture in there, right? So I will put and if you have a picture, in assignment 1, I ask you to take your form, make a picture, right? And then use that picture to put it into your form, because it will have your team members in there, the form, right? So if you have one, you select it, it says it is from a file, find the file, and we'll put a picture in there. If you don't have a picture in the file, I will create a new one, and I will make one using Microsoft Paint. So I click over here, Paint, and I click OK. And now this is Paint, right? So this is horrible. I cannot draw like this, but anyway, you go get the idea. All right, so this is me in here. All right, so right, this is the customer picture, right? So if I click it, it takes me back to make changes in here, right? So smoking is not good for you, but I put it over here. Right, so here it is that right? That's object, right, linked and embedded. It's embedded into Access and is linked to the original program, so I can make changes to it. Now this picture has been embedded inside Microsoft Access. Of course you have a choice not to embed it, but to link it. Meaning the picture is there, database is in here, the database points to the picture that you can actually display inside, but it's not embedded. Right, because when you embed it, database grows. If you link it, right, the database is not gonna grow. Think about if you have a movie inside the database, that will grow inside of the movie, right? The other benefit by linking it, if the original changes, then every time as the changes are made, you will see the change in the database. If you embed it, you have 2 copies, one inside and one outside. Is that right? So far so good, right? This is how you create, and the form, I'm not gonna save the form, we're just practicing here, right? So how you can use a picture in there. So far so good? Okay. One thing that we very, very commonly do in database is bring data from other sources, from other databases, from Excel files, from whatever it might be. So it's something very, very, very common that we do. So I want to show you how to embed or to import data from another source. So in here, what I will do is on my desktop, I have an Excel file. It is called products. And here is a list of products. See, I don't want to type that into Access. I don't want to create, because the other table that I have over here is called products. ID, name, purchase price, units in stock, right? I don't want to create the table and then I have to go and type all these products one at a time. That would take a lot of effort and I may make mistakes. So I'll show you now how to bring this data into Access and on the fly make the table too. Something that you have to do for your assignment also. Here is how you do it. I will go over here, external data. So far I showed you the create. Create means to add an object, right? A form, a query. So I will go over here, external data, and then it's from Access, right? So by the way, this is external data. You can either import or export, right? So to achieve something, you can either push data to another place or pull data from another place, right? So either export or import. In this case, I have the data, I will import it in here. So I will import from an Excel file, and then as I go in here to import, then a wizard would take me step by step in the process to complete my importing. So the file name, I will browse it, it's on my desktop. and it's called products. And then I have choices. Import into a new table. If I already have a table and I want to add more data to it, I can append means add more records into the table, more data, right? Link, I'm not gonna link them. I'm just gonna bring all the data in. So I will import and I click OK. And here is now my data. And I can go over here and I click next. So I can visualize the data. The first row contains headings. If the data in Excel has column headers, those column headings that will become the field names in Access automatically. Right? So notes over here says product ID, product name, purchase price. Those will be the field names. If you want, and of course, after you bring it in, you can make changes if you want. It's up to you, right? But these are my, and I click next in here. Now, column by column, you can specify some of the properties for each column. Notice over here it says, for example, units in stock, it says data type is double. I would like to make that into an integer, so I say, no, I want this to be an integer. Units on order, I want to be an integer. You can make the changes before import, or you can make the changes after you import. You can go and change the design of the table. And I will do them both so you can see. Okay? So I click over here next, assume that I have gone, and then Access uses a primary key. No, I have my primary keys, my product ID. Otherwise, Access will put them, will make one and will call item 1, item 2, and so on and so forth. And I click next, and then how you would like the new table to be called. It says over here products, because that's the name of the worksheet inside the workbook, the file, right? So I will look over here and I call products, it's the same name, that's fine, I click finish. Now I have another table, it's called products, right? If I open it, I see my data, and if I click over here, I will see the design. Is that correct? If it's something I do not like, I can go to design and make changes. For example, look at my data in here. It says discontinued the words yes or no, correct? That's text, and I say, no, I don't want to be binary, 0 and 1. So I can make a yes or no field. So rather than being like this, yes or no with text, I say, no, I would like that. Discontinue, rather than being text, I would like that to be a yes or no. It's a difference between yes or no and difference between text to say yes and no. Is that right? Yes or no is binary, it's very fast. So I will make it to binary yes or no, and then notice, when I start, I will look at the data, and then Access will remind me, you change the structure of the table. Do you want to save it, right? Look at that. Save it, yes. Remember, remind me as I go, right? Yes. Notice over here it says yes or no, has a checkbox. It's not the one where the words yes or the word no, right? Look at the design. It is yes or no data type, displays in here as discontinuous checkbox, not checkbox. Yes? So, based on this, you should be able now to do continue and build all those tables in here. Is that correct? In your assignment 1, your tables, I have specified the data types. Here it is the tables, and I specify the data types over here. For the team number is integer, team name is text 30, team picture is object, link, and embedding. Is that right? Only in a very, very few, only a couple cases, I ask you to decide. So for example, over here, I have trade shares. And I ask you the data type, you tell me what data type should be. Is that right? So the majority, obviously, trade shares, it cannot be text. It cannot be yes or no, right? It's a number of shares. So you have to decide what it is. Is that right? So you should be able then, and also I ask you to import the stocks table data. So I will do it in here too. To import, so external data from Excel, find the stocks table, put it in a new table, Finish. This is it. How long does it take to do that? To import the data, right? Now these are your 500 stocks, right? Automatically I made a table and I put the data in there too by importing it. That's very useful and very powerful. We do it all the time in professional. Question and then question.
So you said that when you import, you have the option to either import and you can change things or to append, add things.
That's right.
So you can't add things when you import, but you can change things?
No, you can append, you can add. Yeah, you can appending means adding more records right into the table. So to give you an example, for your prices, I have the prices that you record every Friday, I record the same prices, right? But I don't want to record all the prices for every team that I have for both my classes. So I have the data in a spreadsheet, and then I import it once and I make a structure, and the second time I import it for next week, I only bring the data. Next week, only the data. So the first time I import and I brought the data and the structure, the field names, but after that, only data, append, and adds records. So 500 this week, next week 500, next week 500. Right? So it's up to you how you will use it, right? But you can either add a table and the structure, or you can add the records only. But to add only records, that means you already have a table, has the right fields, so you can add the data. You cannot bring, let's say, this data into a customer, right? Because the field names in another line, right? Now question.
So just a clarification question, when we import data, do you want us to import everybody's, like all the 500 stocks, or just our
All
own?
the 500.
Okay.
And that is how I know you know type them.
Okay.
Because if you only have your 5, you can type them, right?
Yeah.
But if you have 500, for sure you have to import them. You're gonna sit down for 3 hours and type. Yeah. Bring all the data in. Somebody else has another question from here?
Are we building one access as a team?
That's
or are
right.
we doing individual ones too?
One as a team.
Okay.
One as a team. So one access database a team. And one thing that I will remind you, do frequent backups. Managers, right? I would assume when you start working on it, do a daily backup. Call it Access Project version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. Just in case somebody makes something catastrophic and destroys your database, you don't want to start from the beginning. Say, okay, we lost today's work, let's take yesterday's and start continuing from yesterday's, right? Do backups. You know how to do, well, you know what that means? Backups. So save your work, right? File copy, and then when you paste it, call it version 1. And then paste it again, version 2, paste it again, version 3. Is that right? So how are you gonna do it? Save, yes, that's all right. Any questions right now? So let me go over here. So in your case, you will import all the data from the stocks Excel workbook. Check, I showed you how to do that, right? Then you create a table which is called team, and then you create a new table which is called trades and prices and so on and so forth. Is that right? I give you the data types, and I ask you the trade field to make it a sort date from when you're having a field, any field in the properties. You can specify more details. For example, if I have an integer field, let me go over here to projects. If I have a field over here that says number, right, as a number can be many type of numbers. Look over here. Integer, no long integer, and so on and so forth, right? You can specify more specifically. So if you have decimal places, you make that into a double. And if you make it a double or a decimal, right, here, and then it tells you how many decimal places. So a number can be a whole number, it can be a decimal, right, a partial number. If it's a partial, specify. And the choice, now we don't want to burden you with more details. The choice is, there are so many different data number types, because when you define data types, you want to be economical, right? Notice over here, it has something that's called long integer. a long integer, it is a 128-bit number. Means we store the values in 128 bits. You know what that means? How big it can be, that field? Let me go to calculator. If I have, let me go to scientific calculator. If I go to, where is it over here, to the power of 128, this is how big of a number I can represent, right? If you're gonna store somebody's 8, you're not gonna make it a long integer. Is that correct? Not even dinosaurs, you can go back in time so many years, right? So you have to make something that's more economical. That's why these applications, the idea is to make it more economical, because smaller field sizes typically means faster calculations, faster sorting, faster. Endless space, right? All right. Any other question? Oh, let me go back in here and see. So you should know everything up to this point now. Okay? Now I'm gonna show you how to do this, which is to make the ERD, right? And to make the ERD, because I wanna make the other 2 tables now, I don't wanna spend much time making tables because it's a trivial thing. I already have save the changes, okay, and I'm closing it. On the desktop, I have the access demo over here. I have the database and I have the data already, and I made the other 2 tables too. So I have now all 4 tables, right? So here's my database. So this is how to create the ERD, the relationships, like this. So initially you would go to database tools. So I showed you the home, the create, the external data. Now I'm showing the database tools, right? Menu. And in here you have a tool, a button that says relationships. Initially, in your case, will be like this. Blank, will be no relationships. So what you have to do, you have to, I'm right clicking here. I right click and I say show table, and you say, I want to show the relationship between customers, double click it, you're gonna paste it on the desktop, and projects, it will put it on this desktop, right? And order items and orders, it will make it like this, it will put the tables one next to the other. But you're not gonna have the lines. The lines will be gone. It will just appear like this. Oops, I need to watch me. So customer order, I don't have order items, right? So say table, yes, so order items. Order items are over here. I want to do this relationship. Is that right? That's how, so initially you're gonna go to a blank screen, you have no tables. Then you're gonna add your tables. And then, simple, primary key, drag and drop it into the foreign key. And that's a relationship. So, customer ID relates to the customer ID in order, is that right? So drag this and drop it in here. And we'll ask you, enforce the referential integrity, select yes, and click create. Enforcing integrity means the following, so you know what that means. Because you might have this issue. I have product ID, I will do one without enforcing the, actually I'm not gonna do this, without enforcing the integrity. It's gonna create just a line between the 2 products, between the 2 tables, you see that? There's no one and many, is that right? When I enforce it, when I have like this checkbox, it will put one and many. What that means enforcing integrity is the following. I cannot have an order record that has a customer ID if the customer ID cannot be found in the customer table. You have to repeat it? I cannot have an order. And that order, when I make the order, I type customer ID 64. 64 customer ID, if I type it in the order, 64 has to be a customer ID in the customer's table. You cannot make a deposit to the bank unless you have a customer account. If the account is not found, there's no deposit. You cannot enroll in a class unless you have a student ID. No student ID, there's no enrollment. That means enforcing the referential integrity. So this way, the database forces you to have data that has relationship one-to-many. Is that right? Okay. The same thing continue over here. Product ID, replace product ID, enforce the referential integrity. And then we go over here with invoice number to invoice number. I just drag and drop it, enforce it. And now you can move those around, it doesn't matter. As long as you replicate the database design, the ARD. Is that right? Save it, doesn't matter, it's already saved from before. So you recreate this. In my case over here, I just recreated this. Is that right? Now that you have the database design completed, then add your records, your data. So after the database ERD is done, then add all your records. Add your team numbers, your members, your stocks, your trades, your prices, after. And the reason I'm saying after, because I have seen it many, many times, when you type the data first, the data violates the rules, and then you say enforce integrity. And the database says, I cannot enforce it, it's wrong data. Right? So for example, what that means. Click over here, you have team number and you have team number. That's one-to-many relationship, is that correct? So you type your records and you type team number 305, but you made a mistake and you type 350 because you have a, and then you type a team number 305, and then you try to enforce the referential integrity, and the database says you cannot enforce it. You say, well, why? Because your data, rather than typing 305, you type 350, and you never show it. The database says your data already violate that rule. There's no team 350. Is that right? That's why I prefer you to create the RD first and then add the records. Right? So this way, if you make a mistake in a typo, the database will tell you, say, sorry, you cannot add this because it's invalid state, because it's invalid team number, something like that. Questions so far?
Bold picture, can you go up a little bit? Yeah, right there. So it says OLE. So what does it mean? So we're not supposed to link it to anything, right? It's supposed to be in the database.
You're gonna link it. It's an OLE type, like in here. Let me go over here to the tables, customers. Let me see if I have a picture in here. I don't have a picture. I'm gonna add over here a customer picture. Remember that this is OLE, right? It's an OLE object.
Oh.
That's the data type, right? And then you embed that into the right? You will embed it because it will look like this. Your picture will look like this. When you look at your team, it's gonna look like one that will be your team. Right? I just put over here a stock picture. Is that right? Let me show you the most important part first, and then I will go then after to form. But the most important part now is to understand how do you work with queries. How do you work with queries? So here's my database. Save it as fine. So I would like to know. So this, if you look at the ERD, here's the ERD. You see the ERD of the Excel we're doing. A customer places orders, an order has order items, the order items relate to products. That's what we did last Monday, right? On Monday, is that correct? I asked, we had one more table that says recall. Remember that? So here's the question. I would like to produce a recall letter. So how do I produce a recall letter? Because remember that we put over here the data for the recall, right? So I want to do a recall letter. So I want to find out which customers bought product 5, because product 5 has been recalled. Right? How do I do that? Notice in the ARD, product 5 is in here, customers is in here. Is that right? To link the two, I have to go from customers to orders, from orders to items, from items to products. Is that correct? So I would like to know which customer, product 5, when and how many quantities. How's that? Okay? So product 5 is here. How many quantities a customer bought is in here because that has the order quantity, right? When the customer bought something is in here because it has the invoice date. And the customer name and address is in here on this table. Is that correct? So my query, I'm asking questions, and the data will come from multiple tables. It's easy to come from one table, but the data may come from multiple tables. So here it is now how to do this query. I'm gonna go over here to create, and I will create a query, and I will go design. I will show you wizards in a minute, right? But I'm using design so I can show you every single step. So my question involves which tables we said. Products, is that correct? Customers, order items, and orders, is that correct? I click, and here they are. Does it look like in here, like your ERD? Is that right, your ERD? So, I would like to know, product ID 5 with the name, whatever it is, I double click it, right? Automatically will put that below into the columns. Product 5 will product name. I would like to know which customer ID and name purchased it. I would like to know when, invoice date, and how many items that were ordered. You see that? I click. You can drag and drop too, do the same thing.
Does the sequence matter?
Now, it doesn't, the sequence, every time you click something, it will put you on the next column. But if you don't want it in that order, you can select it and then you can move it. You can select it over here, and then you can move it.
But does the query get affected by the
No.
order of it, like for example, having customers?
No. The records will be the same records. The data that was displayed, it will be in the order that you see. Right? I'll show you in a minute. Here, let me run this query.
Because when you were saying what you were recalling, you went back to it.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Either way, the order doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So I could have started, I delete them all. I would like to know which customer ID with what name, bought what product ID, how many quantities, and what quantities, and what date. So it doesn't matter the order, right? It will give you the same output. Is that clear? Now look at this now. Because I want only product 5, I have to go to criteria, and the criteria is about product, right? Product criteria. So I went over here the criteria, and I say product 5. Do you see that? Product 5, I put the criterion 5. So when I run this query, it will give me everybody's name who bought product 5. See over here, product 5. Is that right? So it will give me the customer ID, the product name, the quantity, and the date, but only for product 5. If I go back to design and I say, no, I made a mistake, it was product 1, and I run it now, it will give me product 1. Product ID, 51, I made a mistake. Hey, I don't want 51, I want 1. Product 1. Even though 51 is quite popular. Here it is, product 1. Is that right? Now what happens is this. As you create a query by example, by dragging and dropping or selecting, in the background, Access will create a SQL statement. Remember we discussed SQL, right, last time? Structured query language. Here's the SQL statement. It says, select from customers table the full name, from customers the ID, from products the product name, from order items the quantity, right? Where product ID is 1. If I make that into 5, it will be the same thing as I was typing 5 in the previous screen, right? And if I run it, it will give product 5. That's a SQL. And that's why in here you have what's called the SQL. This is the SQL view. Now here, in the table you have two views. Data, design, right? Now you're having data, design, SQL. Look at the code, look at your design, look at your data. Yeah, so here it is the data, the design, the code. This code runs, right, to provide you this data. Does it make sense? So again, I'm going to design. So let me look at this data over here. The date it is 2017, 2016, 2018. How about this? What if this recall it'll happen only for the products that were bought before 2018, not 2018, the previous year, right? So you can go over here, design view, and you say, on the invoice date, I want to be less than 1/1/2018. Now it will give me only, yes, it would be nice if I type less, right? So that was less than 1/1/18, right? So it's less than 1/1/18, and if I run it, and it was product, oh, I put it in the wrong column, on the wrong row, this is above. Oh, and then, let me explain what that means, by the way. Let me cancel that and put it over here. Because now this is the right thing, and I will explain what that means. So these are all the products ID 5, and the date is less than 1/1/18. So when I go over here and I put data in the same row, that becomes the end condition. 5 and state of California, and on this date, and, right? If I go to rows, that becomes an or. So for example, if I put over here product 2, that means give me product 5 or product 2.
Was that quotation mark
Where?
on that?
This, the hashtag. Yeah, automatically put for dates, right? So if I go row, that becomes an or condition, one or the other. If I go across, it will be one and the other. For me to select a record, I have to fulfill every single condition. It has to be product 5 and less than 1/1/18. Does it make sense?
Would you repeat that? Rows mean?
Rows means an or condition. Look, show you the SQL code. Look at the SQL code. I don't know if you can see it over here. It says, what product ID is 5 and the order is less than 1/1, or product ID is 2. See that over here, the or, right? So if you go row in the criteria, it becomes an or condition. So pretty much, I saw DMV, I saw a car hitting another car. It was either a Mazda or it was a Toyota. So you're gonna go to DMV and you say, maker either Mazda or Toyota. But it was yellow, right? So you can put yellow color, right? And then you can do a search, it's gonna give you all the Mazdas or Toyotas that they were yellow. You see the idea, right? And the criteria, you can put between, you can put many different selection criteria. But you had a question? Question? Yeah.
So just to backtrack a little bit, when you want to set up your query, then when you're double clicking like product ID, customer name, like how do you know what you want to double click? Is that all the primary?
You double click whatever you want to be the output. Whatever you'd like to see, right? So remember when we did the recall letter?
Yeah.
And then we say on the recall letter put the customer name, the date, is that right? The recall instructions, right? So whatever you want the output to be, that's when you double click.
No, it's add more later if you want to.
Absolutely, you can change it, you can add more, absolutely. And often, that will happen, usually, you guys will play around with this, find something, instead of something else, and you can modify it, right? And eventually you're gonna save it, right? Eventually you're gonna save it. So, but let me do the design, I wanna take the 2 out, I wanna leave it only 2 and 5. Is that right? Here is one thing that's important for you to know. very, very important for you to know, and this is probably will be the most difficult thing for your assignment. The most difficult thing. It's not that difficult, but simply you forget how to do it. This is typically, so here's an example. So I would like to know now, I'm gonna refund the customer, right? And to refund the customer, I need to refund the customer. I have to know not only how many quantities they bought, but what price they paid. Is that correct? So I'll put over here price. So I'm over here and I say unit price. Let's look at the query. So this customer bought 15 items for $21, right? Now I have to know how much to refund. And to refund, it will be the quantity times unit price. Is that correct? But there's no data that says refund amount. You can make up one. So you can go to the query, and that will be a calculation. And there's many different ways of doing this. I will do it like in Excel. Equal, like in Excel, equal. Only remember, in brackets, you will put the column names. Like if you had to do it in Excel, it would be like something like this. Cell A1 times cell A2. Is that right? Exactly the same thing, only it's not gonna be cell 1, it's gonna be column name times column name. Right? Only the column names will be in brackets. So what column, what's the column, the first column name? Order quantity, is that right? Times what column?
Price.
Unit price, is that correct? I do the same thing, I say equal to order quantity, close the bracket, means column 1, and the only time that you have to put the bracket is because the field name has a space between. That's why I remember earlier I did not put in the space. If you have no space, you can just type order quantity. But if there's space, it will assume that 2 different fields. So by putting a bracket, you say that's one field name. It's called order space quantity, right? So it's always safe to put it anyway. Order quantities times the asterisk. The field is called unit price. So I'll make a mistake in here to show you the typical error. The typical error is for you if you have a typo in the field names. Because if you have a typo in the field names, look at this. When I run this, right, it says 15 times 21 is 320. The most common error, you mistype something in here, and you say order, for example, the R in the order. And then you click enter, and it's gonna give you a dialog box. And it says, I do not know what order quantity is. What do you mean? Type a value. I type in value 1, and then, right, the calculation is based on 1. Everything is 1. You see that? If you see that, when you run it, if you see that dialog box, you have a typo in the field name. Do you get that? Do you get that? So I will cancel it because this should be order quantity. And to make the column name more meaningful, rather than saying expression 1, I can go over here and I put refund amount. This way, when I run it, it will say that this customer on bought this on this date for so many quantities. That's the refund amount. Yep. Okay.
When you cancel it, is it just you deleting it, highlighting it?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. It will, so cancel it, so did not execute it. There's no running. So I mean, if you run, it's nothing really big. But if you have 10 billion records, right, and you could click submit, all right, then it will start crunching a lot. You don't want to wait, right? For us now, it's a couple hundred records is fast, right?
Does the access save automatically?
Saves the data, but not the design. Now in here, I'm designing a new query, right? Look at this. If I want to close that query, it's gonna say, do you wanna save this query? And if I say yes, then I'm saving it. Right? So in this case, that's okay, I can say no. Yes? So that was a query refund in here. I just did it, the query refund. If I wanna change, I can go back in here and make changes. I said this is not product 5, it's product 2, 3, right? Sometimes intentionally, Sometimes intentionally, I make a mistake in here. This is what I do. This is beyond the assignment one, just for you. Sometimes what I do over here, I put a question mark in here. What product? And I did not put the actual product. I put a question, what product? So this way, when I run it, say what product? I say product 2. And here is a report product 2. If I run it again and I ask what product, I say 5, it will run on 5. So this way you can make a query, and it's not gonna be always product 5. You can type whatever you want, because product 16 is a recall, 85, 92, and you can produce them on the fly. So if I close that, for example, I save it, yes. So if I do that, when I create this, I say, well, we have now a recall. Product 64. 64 is a recall. Send a letter. Here it is. Because now they all say product 64. Is that right? Because in the query, I put a question mark in brackets. So this way it says, okay, whatever you type in there, that's what I'm going to use as a parameter. Right? Yes? Okay. So now you should, here's my advice. Here's my advice. I will close this query. For your assignment 1, you have to produce 2 reports. The annual dividends and the gains and losses. Is that correct? Look at the annual dividends. Stock and stock name. Where does that, what table is that, the stock name? In the stocks table, right? Trade shares, where is that? In your trades that you have. How many shares you purchase, is that correct? Then share price at your trades, correct? Dividends, you have to find the dividends. And then the annual dividend amount is what? Number of shares times the dividend per share, is that correct? But I show you how to do that, is that correct? How to multiply the columns, is that right? The same thing in here. Gains or losses. The description on the devices, it is on the stocks. The symbol is what you bought, your trades. The number of shares is what you bought in your trades, right? The price that you paid is in your trades, right? The price now, this is the price of the date, it is on your prices table. And then the gain and loss is what? Gain and loss is the difference of purchase price versus price now, is that right? Times number of shares. So if you bought at $30 and now it's 32, you make $2 per share, times 100 shares, $200. Is that right? So you and I have the calculations below so you understand what they are, right? But now you know how to do the queries. Is that correct? You know how to do the queries. And my advice is this. Make the queries first, that we have this information. Look at it. And after you have a query, then make a report. Making a report is very, very fast, easy. Once you have a query. You don't have to do it this way, but I find it to be much easier. Make a query first, then use the query as the basis for the report. And here it is, I'm gonna do it for you right now. I have the query refund, is that correct? Product 2 was bought by Benny, right? This product 2. Is that right? I have product 2 over here. So I have product 2. I would like to make a report, a letter a report for each customer to say, Mr. Dear Customer Spiros, you bought this item on this date. That's your total refund. Is that right? So here's how I'm gonna do it. I already have the data. I want the format to look beautiful on the screen. So I'm gonna go over here now, create a report. And I will go again. I will use a wizard so you can see also how to use a wizard. How's that? A wizard. It's easier to use a wizard, by the way. All right, so I'm just trying to not take the easy route so I can show you in detail how to do it on your own. Here's a wizard. The wizard said, you want a report? Where is the data for this report? And I say, this data is in a query. It's called query refund. It's over here. This is all my data. Data can be in the table of the query. It's called query refund. Is that right? Now the question is, what data from this source do you want? And for every data that I want, I can click and add it. Or if I want it all, I select all and we'll put everything to be. You don't have to select every single item that is in the table or in the query to go to the printer, right? It's up to you. So what again, this is how you add and this is how we exclude an item. Add an item, exclude an item. Exclude all, add all, right? So next. Now, if the data come from more than one sources, more than one tables, you have a choice of aligning this. Do you want this by customers, by date, how you would like it to be, your report? Now it's over here, it says by customer, and then by date, and then, so customer, and then dates, and then trades, or buys for that date. Then next date for that customer. And nothing done with this customer, customer two, date. You can arrange this any way you want. Over here, it tells you many different ways for you to arrange that. You can go by product, by order items, by order, right? So I can go by order here, for example. I'm just gonna select by order, just to show you. And I click next, right? So I'm over here, it tells you any grouping levels. So groupings help you, if you have 10 items, do you want to break them into 5 and 5? And if you wanna break them, how are you gonna break them? By date, by something else, by state, whatever it is, right? And we have no grouping levels, you go next. In here, if you would like to add things up, you can select summary choices. And also how you would like to sort. If you want to sort the data, in your case it will be only 5 records, doesn't matter. But if you're gonna sort them in some kind of particular order, you can specify, I want by refund amount in descending, the biggest and the small refunds, right? Am I out of time? Okay, and then summary options means if I want to total, right? Total values at the bottom of the break. Give me 1 minute here, I will go refund amount total. Let me click finish. Real quick so you can see it. Finish. Which product? Product 2. Here's my report. It has customer, first customer, all the purchases. And then I can go to the next customer and next customer. This customer over here, Maria, has 4 records. Do you see that? Making a report is very, very easy. The query is the difficult part. Once you have a query, the report is very, very fast and easy. You know now, I have not shown you one thing, I'll show you next Monday, but you know 95%, over 95% of assignment 1. So thank you, I'll see you.